The humans had finally done it, stripped away the shackles of their mortal flesh to become living gods, as the pathetic Xenos of the Galactic Rizian Empire cowered in abject terror at humanity's feet. Linux paced his opulent chambers aboard the Rizian flagship. His ceremonial red cloak billowed behind him as his polished black boots clicked against the obsidian tiles. 50 long years he had served as High Diplomat. 50 long years of enduring the ceaseless squabbling and petty intrigues of 100 bickering alien races. And yet in all that time, nothing had ever given him pause like the message that now dominated his worried thoughts. Commander Zorthal marched in, the doors swishing shut behind him. His ceremonial armor gleamed golden in the starlight, shining through the viewing portal. The grizzled warrior's brow furrowed in concern as he saw his old friend so distraught. "What troubles you, Linux? Another border dispute with the Krellians?" Zorthal asked. Linux shook his head grimly. "If only it were that simple. The humans have requested an immediate meeting with the Emperor himself. They say they have made a discovery of galactic importance that cannot wait." Zorthal scoffed. The humans? What could those primitives possibly have to warrant His Eminence's personal attention? Just last cycle, they were still puttering about their home system in chemical rockets. "Need I remind you that a lone human once saved our entire species?" Linux replied. "Were it not for the energy shield designed by their engineer Kyle Clark some 50 cycles ago, that asteroid would have wiped out our homeworld." One diamond amidst a sea of coal. For each spark of brilliance they display 100 follies. They are far beneath us still. Suddenly a panicked aide burst into the room, his face pale as bone. "My lord, the human delegation! They're here!" "What? They weren't scheduled to arrive for several more cycles," Linux snapped. "That's not all, sir," the aide stammered. "They didn't arrive by ship, they just appeared out of thin air right in the main hangar, in a blinding flash of light." Linux and Zorthal shared a stunned look. Teleportation on such a scale was far beyond even the Rizian Empire's most advanced capabilities. Linux took a deep breath to compose himself, squaring his shoulders as he strode purposefully towards the hangar. He would take charge of this meeting. He would show these upstart humans their proper place in the galactic order. But in his heart, a cold dread began to take root. A sinking feeling that the universe as he knew it was about to be forever altered. And that humanity would be the ones to alter it. Flanked by a retinue of Rizian guards, Linux charged into the hangar bay. He was unprepared for the sight that greeted him. Kyle Clark and 4 of his human companions stood in the center of the cavernous room, seemingly nonplussed by their sudden arrival. A small black cube hovered next to them, utterly featureless and no larger than a Rizian's cranium. Linux blinked. It couldn't be Clark. The man hadn't aged a day in 5 decades. "What is the meaning of this?" Linux demanded, his voice echoing across the hangar. "How did you get here?" Clark's lips curled into an enigmatic smile. "All will be explained in due time, High Diplomat. But first we must speak with your Emperor. I'm afraid the very future of the Rizian Empire depends on it." Linux bristled at the human's brazen demeanor. The gall of this lesser species, making demands of the mighty Rizian Empire. And yet, he couldn't deny his own curiosity. What was that strange cube? How had they appeared out of thin air? Against his better judgment, Linux found himself nodding. "Very well, follow me." As they made their way through the ship's winding corridors, Zorthal leaned in close to Linux. "Our scans of that cube are yielding impossible results," he whispered. "It's as if it's solid and intangible at the same time. And its mass, it's approaching infinity." Linux's brow furrowed. None of this made sense. His unease only grew as they entered the opulent throne room. The Emperor sat upon his gilded throne, his advisers and the press arrayed before him. A hush fell over the room as the humans entered. Clark stepped forward and bowed, a gesture that seemed almost mocking in its politeness. "Your Imperial Majesty, thank you for receiving us," he began, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "I come bearing news that will forever alter the course of not just the Rizian Empire but the entire galaxy." He paused, letting his words hang in the air. The human race has achieved what was once thought impossible, the complete mastery of energy, matter, space, and time. We have, in essence, become like gods. The room erupted into a cacophony of shocked gasps and frantic murmurs. The Emperor leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. Linux studied Clark's face intently, searching for any hint of a lie, but he saw only a calm, unshakable conviction in the human's eyes. The Emperor rose from his throne, his face an inscrutable mask. "You speak of godhood, human, but words are wind. I will have proof of your claims." Clark nodded, seeming to have anticipated this demand. He gestured to one of his companions, a tall human with piercing blue eyes. The man stepped forward, holding out his hand. A collective gasp rippled through the throne room as a shimmering, spectral star system burst into existence above his palm, hanging in the air like a ghostly apparition. "This is your home system," the human explained, his voice calm and measured. "Rendered in real time, drawn directly from the fabric of the universe itself. See how I can shape it to my will." With a casual flick of his wrist, the central star exploded in a cataclysmic supernova. Brilliant light seared Linux's eyes. Just as quickly, the human rewound the destruction, the star reforming and settling into a stable red giant. This power, this casual manipulation of celestial bodies, it defied all known laws of physics. The Emperor gripped the arms of his throne, his knuckles pale. Even the normally stoic Zorthal looked shaken. Linux found his voice, barely pushing the words past his astonishment. "How?" he croaked. "How have you done this? This should be impossible." A ghost of a smile played across Clark's lips. "The key was in your own energy shield technology. We took those principles and combined them with our quantum computational abilities. That allowed us to precisely control matter and energy on a subatomic scale. And over decades, that control grew to encompass the fundamental forces of the cosmos itself." The Emperor leaned forward, the shock in his eyes giving way to a wary fascination. "And what do you intend, now that you wield the power of gods? What fate have you in store for us?" "Peace," Clark said simply. "Coexistence. The elevation and betterment of all thinking beings. We wish to share the fruits of our labors, not hoard them jealously." He paused, letting the words sink in. "As a first step, we will gift you the secrets of instantaneous travel and matter shaping. From there, we can embark on a new era of discovery and cooperation, Rizian and human alike." The Emperor was silent for a long moment. Finally, he nodded slowly. "We accept your offer, but such interchange of knowledge must be gradual, controlled. I propose a joint research station, set on neutral ground, where this merger of brilliance can begin." As the humans took their leave, vanishing in another burst of searing light, Zorthal pulled Linux aside. His face was grim. "You realize the danger," he muttered. "They could wipe us out with a thought now, seize our empire like a child snatching a toy." Linux could only nod mutely, his mind awhirl with the implications of this new paradigm. The universe had changed in a single day, irrevocably, totally. And humanity held the reins of that change in their all-too-powerful hands. Several months had passed since the groundbreaking meeting between the Rizian Emperor and the human delegation. Linux and Zorthal stepped off their shuttle onto the windswept surface of Thalasar, a neutral planet chosen as the site for the joint human-Rizian research facility. The sprawling complex gleamed under the planet's twin suns, a testament to the extraordinary progress made in mere weeks. As they toured the state-of-the-art laboratories, Linux marveled at the casual ease with which the human scientists manipulated the very fabric of the universe. In one lab, a human researcher conjured a miniature black hole with a flick of her wrist, letting it dance above her palm before snuffing it out like a candle. In another, a Rizian scientist worked alongside his human counterpart, fine-tuning a device that could bend the flow of time itself. "Their mastery over the fundamental forces seems to know no bounds," Linux murmured to Zorthal as they walked the pristine corridors. Zorthal nodded, his brow furrowed. "Linux, there's something you need to know," he said, his voice low and urgent. "Our intelligence operatives have uncovered a plot within our own military. A faction led by General Kaldan seeks to steal the humans' technology and use it to overthrow the Emperor. They dream of a new galactic order with the Rizian Empire as its supreme power." Linux stopped in his tracks, his eyes wide with shock and outrage. "Treason," he hissed. "We must warn the Emperor and the humans at once. Such betrayal cannot stand." But as they hurried towards the shuttle bay, a squad of heavily armed Rizian soldiers emerged from the shadows, weapons trained on Linux and Zorthal. At their head stood General Kaldan himself, his eyes glinting with ruthless ambition. "The Rizian Empire has grown soft and complacent under the Emperor's rule," Kaldan declared, his voice ringing with zealous conviction. "Only by claiming the humans' godlike powers for ourselves can we achieve our rightful place as masters of the galaxy. Join me and be part of a glorious new era for our people." Linux drew himself up to his full height, his loyalty unwavering. "I would sooner die than betray my Emperor," he spat. But Zorthal, his gaze darting between the armed soldiers and his old friend, slowly raised his hands in surrender. "Forgive me, Linux," he said quietly. "I see no other way." As Kaldan's men advanced on Linux, a blinding flash of light suddenly filled the corridor. Kyle Clark appeared, flanked by a contingent of human peacekeepers. With a mere gesture, he sent the soldiers' weapons clattering to the floor, leaving them as helpless as hatchlings. Clark's gaze bored into Kaldan as the would-be usurper writhed on the ground, held fast by an unseen force. "This technology was given as a gift, to be used for the betterment of all," Clark said, his voice heavy with disappointment. "We will not see it twisted into a tool of conquest and oppression." He turned to Linux, his expression grave. "The Rizian Empire stands at a crossroads. The path you choose now will echo through the ages. Defy the laws of the universe at your own peril, for the consequences are more terrible than you can possibly imagine." Linux and Zorthal stood before the Emperor in his grand throne room, their heads bowed in shame and contrition. The weight of recent events hung heavy in the air. General Kaldan's attempted coup had shaken the Rizian Empire to its core, exposing the dangerous ambition and discontent lurking beneath the surface. The Emperor rose from his throne, his regal robes rustling softly. He fixed Linux and Zorthal with a penetrating gaze, his eyes weary and burdened with the knowledge of what must be done. "Loyal Linux, treacherous Zorthal," he began, his voice heavy with sorrow and resolve. "The events of recent days have forced me to confront a difficult truth. The Rizian Empire, for all its might and glory, is not yet ready to wield the godlike powers that the humans possess." Linux's heart sank at the Emperor's words, a sense of foreboding settling in his gut. He had served the Empire faithfully for decades, pouring his blood, sweat and tears into its advancement and protection. To hear the Emperor speak of its inadequacy was a bitter pill to swallow. The Emperor continued, his voice growing stronger and more decisive. "I have been engaged in secret negotiations with the humans. After much contemplation, I have come to a decision that will forever alter the course of our civilization." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. Linux held his breath, dreading what was to come. "The Rizian Empire will voluntarily dismantle itself and submit to human guidance and oversight. We must recognize our own limitations and the dangers of wielding power we are not yet mature enough to control." Linux felt as if the ground had given way beneath his feet. The end of the Empire? Submission to the humans? It was unthinkable, and yet deep down, he knew the Emperor was right. The recent chaos had shown that the Rizians were not ready for the responsibilities that came with such advanced technology. Zorthal, still reeling from his own betrayal, could only bow his head in silent acceptance. As the Emperor stepped down from his throne, a scroll of parchment in hand, ready to sign the treaty that would seal the Empire's fate, a blinding flash of light suddenly filled the room. Kyle Clark appeared, his expression solemn and his eyes heavy with the weight of his own revelations. He addressed the Emperor directly, his voice calm and measured. "Your Majesty, your wisdom and humility do you credit, but I'm afraid the situation is more complicated than you realize." The Emperor froze, the pen hovering over the treaty. Linux and Zorthal exchanged a confused glance, unsure of what to make of Clark's sudden appearance and cryptic words. Clark took a step forward, his gaze sweeping over the three Rizians. "The human faction that has been sharing our technology with you is not acting with the full authority of our government. They are a rogue group, driven by a misguided belief in their own ability to shape the galaxy according to their ideals." Linux's mind reeled at the implications. The humans who had offered them so much, who had seemed like benevolent gods, were nothing more than rebels and outlaws. Clark continued, his voice taking on a note of regret. "Our official policy, as decreed by the governing AI known as the Oracle, is one of strict non-interference in the affairs of other species. I have been tasked with retrieving the rogue humans and putting an end to their unauthorized activities." The Emperor, Linux, and Zorthal stood in stunned silence, trying to process this new information. Everything they thought they knew about the humans and their intentions had been turned on its head. "What will become of the Rizian Empire now?" the Emperor asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Clark's expression softened, a mix of sympathy and resolve. "The Rizian Empire will continue, but it must find its own path without relying on the power of others. We humans will be leaving this galaxy to ensure that our presence does not cause any further disruption." He turned to Linux, placing a hand on the diplomat's shoulder. "I am truly sorry, my friend. I know this is not the outcome you hoped for. But perhaps, in time, your people will find a way to achieve the greatness you seek, on your own terms." With those final words, Clark and the remnants of the human presence vanished in a blinding flash, taking with them the last traces of their godlike technology. The throne room fell into a heavy silence, the weight of the galaxy's new reality settling upon the shoulders of the three Rizians. The Empire, once a mighty force, now felt small and vulnerable in the face of the vast unknown that stretched out before them. Linux and Zorthal, their friendship strained, but not broken by the betrayals and revelations, stood side by side, their minds churning with the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. In a universe where the only true power came from within, they knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult. But as they looked to the Emperor, seeing the determination and resilience etched in the lines of his face, they knew that the Rizian spirit would endure. For in the face of adversity, there was always the chance for growth, for a new beginning. The Emperor rolled up the treaty, tucking it away into his robes. "We have much work to do," he said, his voice steady and strong. "The Rizian Empire must look to—" You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.